India takes first place in the latest moon race in the southern polar region. Following the failure of a Russian lunar landing, India's Chandrayaan-3 mission is slated to begin investigating an area of the moon that has yet to be visited and has water ice that could be used by future missions. Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new video on the channel. Today we are going to talk about India's successful moon landing. Before we get started with the video, don't forget to smash the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get started. On Wednesday, two Indian visitors, a lander named Vikram and a rover named Pragyan, landed in the moon's southern polar zone. The two robots from the Chandrayaan-3 mission make India the first country to reach this portion of the lunar surface intact and only the fourth country to land on the moon. "We have achieved a soft landing on the moon," announced Somanath, chairman of the Indian Space Research Organization, just after a roar swept through the ISRO premises shortly after 6 p.m. local time. India is on the moon. The Indian people are already proud of the country's space program, which has orbited the moon and Mars and routinely launches satellites above the Earth despite having significantly fewer financial resources than other spacefaring nations. However, the accomplishment of Chandrayaan-3 may be even sweeter because it comes at a critical juncture in the South Asian giant's diplomatic push as an ambitious force on the rise. Officials in India have been arguing for a multipolar international system in which New Delhi is recognized as essential to global solutions. The message of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government in space exploration, as in many other fields, has been clear. The world will be a fairer place if India takes on a leadership role, even while the world's most populous nation tries to meet its people's basic needs. Mr. Modi's assertiveness in the world arena is a key campaign pitch for his re-election to a third term early next year. He has regularly associated himself with India's growth as an economic, diplomatic, and technological force. Mr. Modi has been physically present at mission control for other important events in India's space history, including a successful Mars orbit in 2014 and a failed moon landing in 2019, where he was observed consoling the scientists and hugging the ISRO chief, who was crying. However, Chandrayaan-3's arrival coincided with his journey to South Africa for a meeting of the BRICS group of states. Mr. Modi's face was beaming into the control center in Bengaluru during the last minutes of the landing, where he was split screen with the lander's animation. The triumph of Chandrayaan-3 reflects the aspirations and capabilities of 1.4 billion Indians, Mr. Modi said after the landing, calling the event the moment for a new, developing India. The excitement and expectations surrounding the landing brought a rare moment of unity in what has otherwise been a turbulent time of sectarian strife fueled by the divisive policies of Mr. Modi's ruling Hindu Nationalist Party. Hindu temples, Sikh gurdwaras, and Muslim mosques all prayed for the mission's success. Schools performed special ceremonies and planned live viewings of the moon landing, with tens of millions of people watching an official YouTube video of the event. The Mumbai police band, India's commercial and entertainment capital, paid a special musical tribute to the scientists by performing a famous patriotic hymn. "There is full faith," the song states in Hindi, "we will succeed." The Indian mission launched in July following a sluggish, fuel-efficient path to the moon. However, Chandrayaan-3 outlasted its Russian equivalent, Lunar 25, which launched 12 days earlier. Lunar 25 was supposed to land on the moon on Monday in the same area as the Indian craft, but it crashed on Saturday due to an engine issue. The fact that India managed to outdo Russia, which as the Soviet Union launched the first man and woman into space, speaks to the disparities in the two countries' space programs. Much of India's foreign policy has been fashioned in recent decades by a delicate balancing act between Washington and Moscow, but the country is now dealing with a more aggressive China on its borders. The forces of the two nations have been locked in a standoff in the Himalayas for 3 years, and India's vulnerability to a Chinese threat is a major driving element in its calculations. A shared annoyance with Beijing has only boosted U.S.-India cooperation, notably in space, where China is establishing itself as a direct competitor to the U.S. And with the success of Chandrayaan-3, Mr. Modi will be able to leverage India's scientific prowess to more confidently assert Indian national interests on the world stage, according to Bharat Karnad, Emeritus Professor of National Security Studies at the Center for Policy Research in New Delhi. The control center in Bengaluru became a joyful scene for the Indian Space Research Organization's engineers, scientists, and technicians. Members of the ISRO leadership who handled Chandrayaan-3 stated after the landing that the failure of their last moon landing mission in 2019 was a major motivating force behind their work. "From the day we started rebuilding our spacecraft after the Chandrayaan-2 experience, it's been breathing in and breathing out Chandrayaan-3 for our team," said Kalpana Kalahasti, the mission's assistant project director. Since early August, Chandrayaan-3 has been orbiting the moon. On Sunday, An engine fire propelled the lander into an elliptical orbit 15 miles above the surface. A pre-programmed sequence of movements began on Wednesday when the spacecraft approached the low point of its orbit, traveling at more than 3,700 miles per hour. The craft's 4 engines fired again at the commencement of the rough braking stage of the descent, accelerating its speed of fall. The lander was just over 4.5 miles above the surface after 11.5 minutes and began spinning from a horizontal to a vertical position while continuing its descent. The spacecraft paused for a few seconds to hover around 150 yards above the surface, then began its descent until it landed gently on the surface, some 370 miles from the South Pole. The landing sequence lasted around 19 minutes. Chandrayaan-3 is a scientific mission that will be launched during a 2-week period when the sun will shine on the landing site and power the solar-powered lander and rover. The lander and rover will employ a variety of instruments to collect thermal, seismic, and mineralogical data. Other ideas are in the works for India and the ISRO. Despite the fact that an Indian astronaut traveled into orbit aboard a Soviet spacecraft in 1984, India has never launched people into space on its own. Gaganyaan, India's first astronaut mission, is currently in the works. However, the project, which intends to send 3 Indian astronauts to space aboard the country's own spaceship, has been delayed and no timetable has been set. In addition, the government is planning to launch a solar observatory dubbed Aditya L1 in early September, followed by an Earth observation satellite created in collaboration with NASA. India is also contemplating a follow-up trip to Mars following its recently completed Mars orbiter mission.